And you know what? This may be delusional, but the idea that I tell myself is that more people will fuck with me, will fuck with the business, with the app, because I am my most authentic self. And my most authentic self is going to resonate with enough people to hold me down, to hold us down, to hold the company down. But I also have to be comfortable with potentially not being the number one most, I'm just making this up, downloaded app in the world, most engaged app in the world when it comes to wellness and emotional intelligence, blah, 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 right? And that's a really interesting thought process. It's like, do you want to be number one in the world? The most liked, the most, you know what I mean? Or are you cool with being like number five? All right. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that your boy is bundled up. Your boy got a whole blanket on top of him with a sweater, with sweatpants. Well, you can't really see my pants, but it is cold as hell in my apartment. And I'm just bundled up. But anyway, let's get started with this episode where, again, you already know every Tuesday we have someone from the community join us and walk us through their experience between professionalism and authenticity to really get a sense of like where they are with their self-discovery journey. And then every Friday, I drop an episode which is more intimate, more personal, where I open up where I am with my self-discovery journey. It's essentially a video, audio journal entry. Uh, so it's really a sneak peek into just like what's going on in my life because I think it's unfair for me to ask people to open up about their experience and me not do so on my end. So that said, this morning, I actually like a couple minutes ago, I wasn't sure what the hell I was going to talk about. So this is Friday, exactly when I'm posting the episode. I didn't know what the hell I was going to talk about, so I just wrote down some things. I typically ask myself, like, how am I feeling? I write down some emotions, and then I ask myself how I want to feel. But also sometimes I just try to do a brain dump on my iPad where I typically journal. So these are some of the things that I wrote down, and I'm essentially going to dive into one of them. So I wrote down, I have this fear of getting canceled for being misunderstood. Example, Twitch stream eating a banana. I'll get it. Yeah, I'll probably get into that. All right. Am I giving people the wrong guidance? Sometimes I just ask myself, what the fuck am I doing and why am I doing this? I ask myself that a lot. That was a question I asked myself this week. All right. Being a good friend, expectations that we have for each other, and then weekly losses. I'm going to dive into those first two points of being misunderstood, fear of getting fear of getting canceled, and am I giving people the wrong advice? This is really, really tough. And I often struggle with this one. I remember I was at Snap one day doing a speaking engagement, and someone in the audience, after I presented, asked me a question. They said, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, was like, I'm a mentor. A lot of people look up to me, and I often get the question of, should I bring my most authentic self to work? And the person said that they often struggle with the advice depending on where that person is within their career. Like their gut reaction is often to tell them to be themselves, but then their, let's call it logical slash realistic part of their brain with the understanding of people are racist, people have bias and all these things, that part of their brain often overrides the other part of the brain. And then oftentimes they just say, yo, you got to play the game if you want to be successful. And I think that's the thought exercise that most of us do. Now, I've gotten to a point, and I do recognize that there is some privilege that I have earned. There is privilege that I have earned based on where I am right now, based on the experience that I've been able to gather, right? Working for like a lot of big companies. I have 10 plus years of experience doing things, driving results that I have a resume. I don't even have to apply to jobs. People like recruiters just reach out to me. I have privilege that I have earned, right? So some people will say it's easy for you to, or easier for you to be yourself, even if I was working in corporate still, because you have this experience. Or like, when I was at TikTok, I was a manager. Oh, you can do that because you manage. Cool. That's one thought process, right? Even as someone that runs their own company, but really, as a solo founder, people say, "Oh, well, it's easy for you to be yourself. It's easy for you to give less of a fuck because you're not answering to someone." You know what I mean? I hear that all the time. And I often think about the advice that I give people. Is it out of touch? Like, I don't think it is. I do stand by the idea that you should put in the work in that self-discovery process, and hopefully myself and the resources that we create can help you with that process. But you need to put in the work to figure out what authenticity means to you, and you slowly need to bring that out however you want to display it, verbally, aesthetically, whatever it is. And you need to put yourself in positions and places and surround yourself by people that fuck with that version of you, right? I'm not saying you're not going to meet resistance along the way, right? And part of that resistance may be an educational opportunity for you to educate people on certain things. But I do think there are spaces where we will be accepted for who we are. Here's the thing though. As I'm saying it, the voice in my head is saying, is that realistic? Are you being too idealistic? Are you delusional? And I don't think I am. I think there are places where people will accept us for who we are. Now, the problem is, are we willing to look for those spaces? Are we willing to put up with some awkward experiences to educate people to change some of the spaces that we want to be in? Like, random example, right? Like, maybe one day I experience a microaggression. And let's say it's like, I don't know, every time I do a presentation, people are like, "Oh my God, you're so well spoken." Maybe that's an educational opportunity for me to be like, "Hey, I feel really uncomfortable when you say that because of X, Y, and Z." And the person, unintentionally was like, "Oh my God, I wasn't even trying, like, I didn't even mean it like that." Right. And they generally may not mean it like that. Or they genuinely may not even realize that what they're saying is potentially problematic, right? And then you have that one conversation and the shit is over, and everything about that person besides that comment that they make every time is like really cool. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm rambling, but again, that's the point of this journal entry and just processing my thoughts out loud. But I'm saying all that to say that I do think that I'm giving people the right advice because the alternative, in my experience, as well as the experience of everyone that has been on the podcast, of the opposite is okay, you aren't yourself. You fake it because you feel the need to be accepted in this space where you're clearly not being accepted. So you fake it until the point where you're not doing well at your job. It's impacting your mental health, and eventually you reach burnout and a mental health crisis. That's the alternative that I hear and that I've experienced, right? So why would I lead people down a path of that? You know what I mean? Like it to me it doesn't make sense to tell people to fake it till you make it if I know what the end result is gonna be. Is the burnout, the mental health crisis, like the and that's when you're finally gonna realize like fuck it, this is a waste of time. Like I'm trying to help you realize fuck it, this is a waste of time, this fake it till you make it mentality way sooner. But I think what makes people really uncomfortable about embracing that mentality is that they want to be accepted, loved, supported by, hypothetically speaking, the masses versus a niche audience. Or maybe it's not even the masses versus the niche audience. I think it's just hypothetically everybody. Like we want to be loved, supported, accepted by everybody. And I think we have to realize that it's okay to not be accepted by everybody. Everybody is not for us. Yeah, like that's really difficult for people to accept. And I'm struggling with this now as I start, and it's not like I haven't been sharing my voice. I haven't been sharing my opinion on certain things, but as I continue to do more of it, I know that I will turn a lot of people off, you know? I mean, it's already happened. Like I've said this before, I've said this example before, but when I was pitching myself for a speaking engagement, there was a company that looked at my website or my social media and was like, "Listen, his content doesn't align with our values." And at that moment, I was like, "Oh, well, not only do I want to be just like accepted in the social sense of like his content is appropriate, no, like I missed out on money. I missed out on like a contract there." And in that moment, I could have been like, oh, well, let me delete those videos. Let me change up the way that I talk about my content. Let me not say that there's nothing unprofessional with you having an OnlyFans account. Like, there's nothing unprofessional with you throwing ass on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, I could have stopped saying those things, but I didn't. Why? Because and you know what's funny is like that's the only verbal, well, not verbal, but just like tangible confirmation that I can tie to someone saying no because of the content or because of something that I've said, right? How many other times could that have happened where people said like, "Oh no, I'm sorry, we can't work with you this year or whatever," and they might have said it's because of budget constraints, but in reality, it could have been because of something I've said. You know? Who knows? I have no idea. But at the same time, I'm okay with missing out on opportunities if it means that I can stay true to what I believe in and what I'm passionate about. And again, like this may be a story that I'm telling myself in my head, but also people tell me this. They're like, "Oh, but you can do that because you run your own business." What? Like I need that money. I'm not balling. My savings account, it like I'm, like I just cashed out my 401k, a lot of it to like pay for shit that I want to build. Like I'm not rolling in money. it's not like it's not like I'm saying, oh, I'm gonna turn that down because I'm fucking there's 100 other offers that have accepted me. No, it is just as difficult for me as it is for other people. And if you're like starting your career or manager or director, whatever the fuck it is, like I struggle with the same things. And I think it's really interesting this idea of starting to do live streaming on Twitch because it I mean it's a live environment. You don't know what people are gonna say. You don't like I don't I, just like this, I don't really know what I'm gonna say, but at least this is just like a journal entry and I'm not doing jokes or engaging in like comedic exchange or behavior with the people that are in the chat in the live stream, right? So like there's so many opportunities to just like be misunderstood when it comes to comedy. Like in this journal entry, I'm not saying a joke, right? Because there's no person to say a joke to. I'm just like talking to myself essentially. But in the live stream, I remember like the other day, like I got a banana because I was hungry. I got some peanut butter and I started eating the banana, but I made a joke and was like, "Oh, let me eat this off camera because I don't want somebody to make me a meme." And then a friend who's I know listening to this podcast because he's a day one listener, but he made a joke back and was like, "Yeah, eating a banana on camera doesn't make you gay." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know that. Haha. Like I just don't want to be made a meme. Haha." But I know he didn't mean it in like a, oh my God, stop being anti-gay. I know he meant it as a joke, or maybe he didn't, whatever. But I'm just imagining a situation where that person that received my joke on the Twitch stream wasn't a friend that I've known for years and was just like somebody random. Like my head just goes to instantly, oh, I'm gonna get canceled. Yo, for a long time I didn't want to launch any of this because I feared getting canceled. And not getting canceled for like a crime on some like R. Kelly shit. Getting canceled for like a joke or an opinion. That was like a big fear of mine. And I still kind of have that fear. I mean, I was recording the podcast episode from this week with Odalis. Like, I remember making comments around being on the sales team and some sort of like hypothetical hierarchy that I had in my head with like myself and cross-functional teams and me being uncomfortable that people were labeling me as a DEI expert because I didn't want to be seen as a DEI expert. And that whole time I was talking, I think I said it in the episode. I was like, I'm gonna get canceled for this. Like people are gonna come for me, or like people in DEI are gonna be like, why are you talking down about DEI? And I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. And like no one said that, but this is the mind, the mental gymnastics that I do in my head around hypothetical situations of trying to predict the future. Yeah. I don't where did I start with this? What the hell did I write down in my journal? Where I was like, this is what I'm gonna talk about today. Oh yeah, I have this fear of getting canceled for being misunderstood. I do. But even in that scenario, right? I could tell myself, all right, you know what? Twitch streams, no more jokes are being said. Why? Because I want everyone to come to my stream and feel accepted and safe and insert all of the industry buzzword stuff, right? I don't want to be misunderstood. Maybe not everyone's gonna understand that my joke is a joke. So maybe I don't do any jokes, but jokes are part of me. Like I think of myself as a funny guy. Like I like to joke around. I just like to make jokes. And that's just me. Like I get that from my mom. Like my mom, even in the most serious of situations, like she's a clown. Like she's just very humorous. And that's part of my authenticity, right? But here comes the tricky part. What if I make I'm scared of making a joke that feels uncomfortable to someone else. Like let's just say that banana joke, for example, right? And it may or may not even be funny or whatever, right? Me saying like, "Oh, I don't want to be made a meme." Like if you know me, you know that I'm not anti-gay. I'm not anti-LGBTQ plus, right? Like hopefully you would know that. Hopefully you would know I'm just accepting of everybody, but you often don't have time to contextualize that, right? Like if you're in a conversation with your friends and you're just, maybe you're on a Zoom call or whatever, maybe you're FaceTime or whatever, and you make that joke, like I'm not gonna make that joke and be like, well, hey, just for context, I'm anti this, this, and that. Like you just make the joke and you continue going forward, right? What I'm trying to say is that I want to be as authentic as possible on the stream, just as I am on the podcast, just as I am everywhere else, and not be fearful of getting canceled and not not be fearful of being accepted by everyone. Like I want to go into it with the mindset of, and this is how I go into it, but I want to continue this mindset with, listen, whoever's gonna fuck with me is gonna fuck with me. Whoever isn't. Only thing that I can control is how I show up and how comfortable I feel and how true I am being to myself, right? Cool. Now I'm launching an app though. And the goal is to get it in the hands of everybody, right? And eventually I will have people working under me or with me, to not create a hierarchy, but whatever. I mean, they're going to report into me, so under me, whatever. And hypothetically speaking, the more users that we get, the more customers, revenue, blah, 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 the more people I can hire. That said, me continuing to be my most authentic self may turn people off despite how fire the app is, despite the value that it's giving to people. They may not download the app or use the app solely because I am the CEO and I have a certain opinion and I make jokes that are going to be misunderstood. You know, that is a fear of mine. And just like the advice that I give people, go where you're celebrated, control where you can control, be your most authentic self, because if not, it's going to lead to burnout and a mental health crisis and X, Y, and D because you're balancing being a CEO as well as being a full-time actor. Like I've been down that road of faking it. And I don't want to go down that road anymore. And I'm it's a daily somebody said this, but it's a daily decision to be authentic. It's not easy. And just because I'm a CEO of my own company, solo startup founder, doesn't mean it's easy. Like there will be people that I try to sell this app to, as part of like employee benefits packages that will look at content that I make and say the same thing with the speaking engagement. Your content doesn't align with our values. But you know what? I am comfortable living with that missed opportunity or those missed opportunities if it means that I can stay true to myself and I can feel comfortable knowing the fact that I didn't feel the need to censor myself. The idea that I tell myself, and you know what? This may be delusional. But the idea that I tell myself is that more people will fuck with me, will fuck with the business, with the app, because I am my most authentic self. And my most authentic self is going to resonate with enough people to hold me down, to hold us down, to hold the company down. But I also have to be comfortable with potentially not being the number one most, I'm just making this up, downloaded app in the world, most engaged app in the world when it comes to wellness and emotional intelligence, blah, 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 right? And that's a really interesting thought process. It's like, do you want to be number one in the world? The most liked, the most, you know what I mean? Or are you cool with being like number 5, number 17? I don't know. Just pick a random number. Like, I think in order to be number one, you have to be palatable for everybody. Maybe that's just a story I'm making up in my head. Whatever. I don't care. What I'm saying is that I'm more comfortable with being myself and being number 12 versus faking it and being number 1. I don't want number 1 that bad. And like, I think being number 12 is a much healthier lifestyle than the number 1 with burnout and depression. And we often make up these stories in our head around like, oh, well, number 1 is a billionaire and number 12 is like a multimillionaire. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that. Like, I don't need that much money. Like, that's fire. Yeah, I don't know. I just no, I do know. What the hell am I talking about? I don't know. I do know. That's it. And that's the mindset that I wish more people had. Like, you can be ambitious while you can be ambitious, reach a slightly less audience, slightly smaller audience, but be true to yourself. And I believe that's a healthier lifestyle than being not true to yourself with a much larger audience, but depressed, anxious, blah, blah, blah. That's it. That's the episode. And that's what I hope for myself and everyone listening. Think about that. Okay. See y'all next time.